Laskin Corner. Minister, there's no doubt that the Better Energy Warmer Home Scheme is an important support for many eligible homeowners, and it's one of the key tools that will help reduce the use of carbon in our economy and help us reach our climate action goals. Since 2000, over 143,000 homes have availed of the scheme, and in some ways it's been a victim of its own success. When it was first promoted over a decade ago, many people who were eligible availed of the scheme but benefited from very basic upgrades such as attic insulation. A decade later, and with improved technology, these homeowners, many of whom are over 70 and on fuel allowance, wish to avail of other interventions such as wraparound external insulation. The bad news is, Minister, they're being rejected by the SAAI, as they have already been deemed to have previously availed of the scheme, even though those availing of the scheme now for the first time this year will receive a far greater intervention. And I'm aware of the changes that were made to the scheme last month as part of the government's wider announcement in this area, and I received a PQ reply from the department confirming that a second application may be possible, and it stated very clearly applications may be accepted from the qualifying homeowners who have previously received support under the scheme but who could still benefit from deeper upgrade measures. This means that homeowners will not be precluded from applying for the second time for qualifying works not previously carried out on their properties. It would seem clear, Minister. But Minister, when the SEAI are contacted and when these people apply again, they are in fact precluded. Their application is rejected. So I ask, have the recent changes been embedded yet with the SEAI? Is every person who applies for the scheme for a second time able to avail of the scheme, and what are the qualifying criteria? Equally, Minister, there has been calls for the application process to be brought online to make it more speedy. And as you know, Minister, in order to qualify for the Better Energy Warmer Home Scheme, there are in fact very strict criteria linked to certain social welfare payments. And I think we can both agree that there's a serious risk of fuel poverty for people who are availing of this scheme, and for those who are on the other side of an arbitrary threshold. So I suppose along with increasing demand for the better interventions, there's also more than 7,000 homes awaiting for works under this scheme. And can you outline how you hope to break down the backlog that has grown during the pandemic, and how yourself and Minister Harris are addressing the skill shortage in this area? There's been a steady decline in the number of homes which are being completed through this scheme in Dublin in the past 5 years, from 1,598 in 2017 to just 693 last year. So are there plans to increase these numbers in what is a very beneficial scheme that has generated much demand, Minister?
Thank you, Laskin Corner. I thank Deputy McAuliffe for raising this very important issue, and I know the Deputy has raised this matter on a number of occasions. And I thank the Deputy for an opportunity to give an update on the government action on the Better Energy Warmer Home Scheme. The programme for government and the Climate Action Plan set ambitious targets to retrofit 500,000 homes to a building energy rating of B2 and to install 400,000 heat pumps in existing buildings by the end of this decade. This target represents a very significant increase in both the volume and the depth of retrofit activity in Ireland. The recently published National Retrofit Plan sets out how we will achieve these targets and identifies an unprecedented $8 billion to support homeowners to retrofit their homes in 2030. It includes a range of measures aimed at supporting those least able to afford to retrofit. Recently, Minister Ryan also announced further improvements to the supports available to homeowners to retrofit their homes in line with the commitments in the National Retrofit Plan. The Better Energy Warmer Home Scheme delivers free energy upgrades to eligible homeowners in low-income households who are vulnerable to energy poverty. It is administered by Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland, the SEAI, and since the start of the scheme in 2000, over 143,000 free upgrades have been supported by the scheme. In 2021, the average cost of the energy efficiency measures provided per household was $17,100. A budget allocation of $109 million has been provided for the scheme this year. This will support an increase in the number of free home upgrades from an average of 177 per month in 2021 to 400 per month this year, helping to reduce waiting times. Change to qualifying criteria has also been made. The Department of Environment, Climate and Communications committed to reviewing qualifying criteria for the scheme, including the rule only allowing one visit to homeowners. I am delighted to tell you that several revisions up to the scheme were made recently to better target those in need. including for the first time, applications will be accepted from qualifying homeowners who previously received supports under the scheme, but who could still benefit from even deeper measures. This means that applicants will now be able to have a second visit under the scheme. The scheme will target the worst performing properties by prioritising homes that were built and occupied before 1993 and have a pre-work spur of E, F or G. Existing applications will not be affected by this change. The scheme eligibility criteria will also be extended to include those in receipt of disability allowance for over 6 months who have a child under 7 years. The scheme is now open to applicants in receipt of the following welfare payments: fuel allowance, job seekers allowance for over 6 months and having a child under 7, working family payment, one-parent family payment, domiciliary care allowance, carers allowance where you live with the person you are caring for, disability allowance for over 6 months and having a child under 7. The eligibility criteria are kept under ongoing review with the Department of Social Protection to ensure that they are consistent with and complementary to the other income support schemes offered by that department. There are currently just over 7,000 homes awaiting work on the Better Energy Warmer Home Schemes work programme. This includes homes that are awaiting the initial survey of their home, have completed the initial home survey and are awaiting allocation to a contractor, have been allocated to a contractor for works, or are currently undergoing works. Activity under this scheme and the associated expenditure were significantly impacted in both 2021 and 2022 by the COVID pandemic, when construction activity was paused for approximately 12 months. However, activity did ramp up again towards the end of last year, and there is confidence around the capacity to deliver 400 homes per month under the scheme this year. Works under the scheme have now recommenced and in line with activity in the residential construction sector. SEAI data indicates that for homes completed to date in 2021, the average time for application to completion was approximately 26 months, taking into account the increase in waiting times due to the impact of COVID. The Department is happy to confirm that SEAI are now expecting that the current backlog can be cleared within the next 18 months. A research network on fuel poverty chaired by the Economic and Social Research Institute has been established to examine data and metrics needed to improve existing measures in and around the issue of fuel poverty. The details I have outlined demonstrate the government's significant commitments to supporting those at risk of energy poverty. Thank you,
Margaret Ara, and I particularly welcome your confirmation this evening regarding that particular criteria that I outlined, that for the first time, and I repeat your words back to you, but for the first time applications will be accepted for qualifying homeowners who previously received supports under the scheme but who could still benefit from even further measures. This means that applicants will now be able to have a second visit under the scheme. And so, Minister, it's now been confirmed in a parliamentary question. The Minister has come before the House and confirmed it. I would say to you, if we can make sure that the SEAI are also aware of this change and that that is being communicated to those people who apply, because the scheme is really widely supported. It's a hugely beneficial scheme to people who are on very low incomes, and I particularly welcome the extension to those people on disability allowance for more than 6 months as well, because I think that brings in an even further catchment for what is a really important scheme. In many cases, these actually may be homeowners who purchased their homes from local authorities, but still may be on very limited income. So I welcome the two clarifications, Minister, and ask you to go further and ensure that the Minister Ryan has communicated this change effectively to the SEAI and that they are reporting that back to those people who make applications. On the issue of the waiting times, a commitment that we will clear the backlog in the next 18 months is welcome, Minister. I would like that to go further, as I'm sure you would as well. And I wonder, have we taken fully into account what will be an increased role for this sector under both this scheme but other measures as well? And I do think that the comments that the Minister for Higher Education made earlier in regard to further education is something we should be taking into account. If there's an option out there for somebody to take up an apprenticeship and to specialise in this area of insulation, I would be saying to the mothers and fathers of Ireland, there's plenty of work in this space of insulation, and I welcome the quality which has been given to the further education and apprenticeships on the CAO scheme.
I again thank Deputy McCall for raising this very important matter, and I've listened with very real interest to the point raised by the Deputy, and thank him again. Up until 2018, the scheme predominantly focused on delivering shallow measures such as an attic or a cavity wall insulation. In many cases where the walls were not cavity walls, only the attic was insulated. With the expansion of the scheme in 2018, internal and external wall insulation were introduced, which meant that solid wall properties could now receive insulation under the scheme. With the scheme expansion, many homeowners who only received attic insulation previously, but who would under current scheme rules qualify for wall insulation, began contesting the one home, one visit rule. The Department of Environment, Climate and Communications committed to reviewing the qualifying criteria for the scheme, and the government recently announced several revisions to that scheme. In this regard, applications may be accepted from qualifying homeowners who previously received supports under the scheme, who could still benefit from deeper upgrade measures. This means that homeowners will not be precluded from applying for a second time for qualifying works not previously carried out on their properties. Changes to the eligibility criteria for the scheme to better target those in need have now been made, and those include accepting applications from homeowners who previously received works under the scheme but could still benefit from the deeper measures now available, the extension of the eligibility criteria for the scheme to encompass people in receipt of the disability allowance for over 6 months and have a child under 7, and a scheme being targeted at the worst performing properties by prioritising those homes that were built and occupied before January 1993 and have a pre-work spur of E, F or G on the waiting list. Existing applications, irrespective of BER, as I said earlier, will not be affected. Funding for SEAI's free energy poverty retrofit schemes has increased dramatically in recent years, from 15 million in 2015 to budget 2022 allocation of €118 million. This shows the government's commitment to that issue. Under the Better Energy Warmer Home scheme, the SEAI will provide 4,800 home energy upgrades to households' energy this year.